All right, welcome class to week number 5. That is right, week number 5 of your 9443 class, which is your academic libraries class. As always, I am your professor, Dr. Jace K. Austin, and this week we have a special guest with us. This is Craig Arthur, one of my fraternity brothers within Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, but also an outreach librarian. Actually, I don't know his exact title, but an outreach librarian for Virginia Tech Libraries, and he will give his official title. But one thing, when I'm teaching this academic libraries class, one thing that I want my students to kind of get a handle on are the different types of careers there are in academic libraries. So your sync sessions this semester are going to be one with Julia Pluta, who is a law librarian, and then the other is the community college panel that we'll be doing in November. But aside from that, I will be bringing in some librarians to talk to with these check-in videos here and there. And so when it comes to somebody who's an outreach librarian, it's a specialized type of job that you can do a lot of neat things with, and Craig here has done a lot of neat things in that role, so he's the perfect person to talk to. And before I'm going to give 2 course updates really quick, and then I am going to turn it over to Craig to go ahead and do his presentation. The first course update, I am going to say yet again that the discussion posts are still going very well overall. I like what you all are doing. Continue to be brave. For those of you who have been sourcing your material on the discussion boards, continue to do that. It's a very good look, and again, I'm noticing that, and that's going to affect potentially extra credit with your grade. But yeah, just keep at it. And the second thing that I want to mention is that your discussion board post for the review of the academic library website, those were due on Sunday night. So if you have not turned that in, yes, you might be subject to some late penalties, but still go ahead and turn that in. That'll be better than taking a 0 on that assignment. And what I want you all to do is, now that those posts have all been completed, or should have all been completed, what I want you all to do is to, when you get a chance, go ahead and make some time to revisit that discussion board post and go ahead and look at what your classmates have submitted, so that you can get some good ideas of what makes a successful or what makes an unsuccessful academic library website. I think that if you all are doing some peer learning here, you'll get a really good idea of how a academic library website should be structured, and that is something that will likely go a long way as you all pursue careers in academic libraries. So having said that, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to our guest for this particular check-in video, Craig, and I am going to mute myself. So Craig, go ahead and take it from here, and after you finish your presentation, I'll have a few questions for you.
Cool. All right. Well, yeah, appreciate it, Dr. Austin. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Craig Arthur, and I am, right now, my title is head of community engagement for Virginia Tech's university libraries. So I'm going to see if I can't get my screen to share real quick. Can't share screen. 1 second, please. Yeah, here we go. This should do it. All right. So unfortunately, it's looking like, let's see if I can do my entire screen, and maybe that will do it. Yeah, there we go. All right. So unfortunately, it wasn't letting me just share the Google Chrome screen. But if I share my entire screen, we should be good. So Dr. Austin, you seeing that? The BTDITC logo?
Yes, we're.
All right, cool. Thank you. Apologize for technical difficulties. When it comes to this stuff, it's always Murphy's Law, but as long as you can figure it out, right? All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about one of the programs I do within my duties as head of community engagement for the university libraries. This is something we've been doing. It's not just me. It's it's basically a community effort, both on campus and beyond campus. A whole bunch of different partners. We'll talk about that in a second, but it is something that you know, very passionate about. We've been doing, I guess, going on 6 years at this point, in our 6th academic year. But it's called VTD-ITC, or Virginia Tech Digging the Crates Hip Hop Studies at Virginia Tech. So that's our logo. We just got approved by branding at Virginia Tech, and if you know anything about dealing with university marketing and branding, that's no small feat. But before I get started, I want to kind of cite some of the folks that got me to this point, right? So basically, just real quick story, how I got to librarianship. I started DJing when I was 14 years old, way back in 1997. It's hard to believe I've been doing it almost 25 years at this point. But, you know, I went to college, kind of DJ'd my way through school. I went to Virginia Tech, working at my alma mater now. And, you know, I was passionate about everything except for schoolwork. I don't know if you guys have ever had this experience where, you know, you feel like you go to college to get a degree, to get a job, you know, that sort of thing. And you're just doing what you got to do to get that piece of paper, get that degree. So that's kind of where I was at until I took a class with Dr. Kwame Harrison in the sociology department at Virginia Tech. And then eventually, you know, it was a hip hop studies class. I think it was the 2nd or 3rd one I ever offered at Tech. And then eventually that led to an independent research project, undergraduate research kind of situation that lasted for about a year. And that led to me, you know, first time like doing really kind of academic research and something I was super interested in. And this is, again, going to date myself, but basically what we did is we looked at every single issue of Billboard magazine, which, you know, if you ever heard of the top 10 or top 40 charts, that's Billboard, right? So it's a magazine for and by the music industry. And what we did is we looked at how hip hop music was perceived by the music industry, you know, from about 1978 or so up till the early 1990s, and how things changed over time, and started thinking about like the political economy of hip hop music and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, so Kwame is actually, hopefully you can see my mouse move. This is Kwame right here. We did a radio show together for a few years as well. Then the guy up here on the right, that's DJ Slate. He wouldn't teach us how to DJ, but he was kind of like our OG in our DJ crew. He started DJing in 1988. And I've got a few other folks that really been super influential in getting me to this point. Just real quick, it's DT, aka Day Tripper, really good friend growing up, still a good friend. And Yamin Somali, artist based out of Atlanta. I mean, DJ Zoe, guy I went to college with and now makes his living traveling the world DJing. Kiana Carter, aka Lioness, college roommate, good friend. And then also a few other folks, but I think one person that's super important to mention is Keisha Arthur right here. I actually met her through DJing, and now, you know, it's been my wife for, I guess, going on 8 years. I should know that off the top of my head, but yeah. So these are the folks. Without these folks, I wouldn't be doing this presentation. So I think it's super important that we always give credit to the people that got you to where you are, right? All right. So next thing, just real quick, what is VTD-ITC? So this is our mission statement, and it's basically, you know, we're here to create community among hip hop artists, fans, and scholars on campus and also in the broader community. And we hope to model that students' personal interests are worthy of academic study and further strengthen hip hop studies presence on Virginia Tech's campus. And our monthly seminar series, that's how this thing started, seeks to celebrate hip hop scholarship through community creation and experiential learning. Real simply put, you know, just learning by doing. This is a mural that a good friend of mine, that if we go back one real quick, you might see some of his other work under a different name. But anyway, this is a mural of Virginia Tech's motto that's up in the university library's main campus library, Newman Library. Ut prosum, our motto is that I may serve in Latin. So yeah, you know, that's one of the things we've done. And here's how the program is structured. So what we do is we try to create as many opportunities for students to engage and learn, you know, largely by doing experiential learning as possible, right? And one of those opportunities is actual student jobs through the university libraries, and we call them community engagement fellows. So here's the list of folks that are currently working with us. So they're all Virginia Tech students, but we do have an intern from a school down the road, Radford University as well. Dion just joined with us, but right now we've got a team of, what is that, 6, I guess, and our intern. All right, and then we also have a leadership board. So this is where I was talking about, like, some of the other community partners, campus partners really play a big role. So we have myself, obviously, and then another one of the program's co-founders, Dr. Freddie Page. He's actually an assistant professor in engineering, civil and environmental engineering. And then we have a faculty member who has a background in theater. She's now working in her dean's office, Dr. DeVera Jeffries, and then Dr. Taisha Thompson. She's an English professor and our community engagement fellow. So this leadership board are the folks that kind of direct the program day to day and make things happen. And then finally, our advisory board. So this is super important if you ever want to do a program where you need to have influence or input from beyond just your campus or beyond just your library. Always recommend setting up an advisory board. It's especially helpful when you've got to make a tough decision, right? But Peter grew up in Blacksburg, where Virginia Tech is based. He's now in Los Angeles, wears a whole bunch of different hats. Then Kiana, we had mentioned her earlier. She's a member of advisory board. Sam Patton, he's an MC and entrepreneur out of LA. And Jason Rawls, Jay Rawls, he's actually a hip hop music producer that's worked with a whole bunch of different people. Somebody you might have heard of is Mos Def, Mos Def, I guess is probably the biggest name that he's worked with. But Demi Wright, another tech grad. And then finally, LaPortia Mama P. Perkins, she was our creative director last year and is an environmentalist out of DC. All right, so what we do, we have our monthly seminar series. We have open studio hours. So we've been doing that in a recording studio in the library, in Newman Library, the main campus library, every Friday since spring 2018. This space that I'm in right now is actually a studio we built with another campus unit. So we've kind of transitioned over here just because it's a little bit more room and have a little bit more control over the space. Then we do hip hop study hours. That's something we inherited from Kwame. And that takes place in Ujima Living Learning Community. So that's Living Learning Community is essentially, I'm sure you guys got them in Missouri, you might call them something else, but it's essentially a themed residence hall. And that residence hall is all about the African American experience and culture. So it makes sense we moved it over there, right? And then also we do media literacy workshops for the New River and Roanoke Valley communities. So that's my favorite part, but I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But yeah, that's what I'm really passionate about. Then we have practitioners for hire. So anytime the campus needs a DJ, they need breakdancers, they need anything like that, we try to connect the campus units with those artists, you know. And then we also offer credit-bearing courses, independent studies, student jobs, and internships. So these are some other things we've knocked out over the past few years. We published a few scholarly articles, presented at conferences, guest lectured for other classes, you know. Importantly, equitably partnered with community-based organizations. When we try to work with, say, like a Boys and Girls Club or another youth center, we don't want to just show up and take pictures, right? We want to make sure we have a real fair, engaging, equitable, I guess, relationship, right? And make sure it's not just one-sided, because as we all know, higher ed can be kind of extractive sometimes, right? We've been lucky enough to win a couple awards and grants. We've built recording studios in the community. So we partnered with a local high school to build a recording studio. And now we're in the early stages of partnering with a middle school to build another recording studio. And we've been assessing this thing and trying to learn from where we messed up, and as well as our, you know, as well as where we've been successful, you know, and always trying to iteratively work on this thing since founding it. And lastly, I think this is super important. We're making art, and that, as we all know, takes scholarship, right? All right, so here's our annual report from, I guess, the past year. Made a mixtape. We're about to put that out now. Super excited, but also just ready to release it to the world, because whenever you work on a project for a really long time, by the time the world hears it, you're typically pretty sick of it, right? I don't know if Dr. Austin can agree. When he wrote his dissertation, he probably, not that this is anywhere similar to a dissertation, but I imagine he was ready to let that thing go by the time it was done with it, right? But we've also done some professional presentations the past year. We received 3 grants, lucky enough to receive an award, and we engaged with 5,000 folks. And obviously, a lot of that was virtual. Super happy to be slowly working our way into in-person programming. Of course, it's still masked up and socially distant. But yeah, things are fraught. But yeah, hoping to engage with even more folks this year, as long as it's safe, right? And if not, going back to virtual. And we did 106 events last year, which sounds like a lot, but when you have weekly events, right? Like every Friday we do studio hours. Every Thursday, we do a live DJ mix on our Instagram. You know, like it adds up, right? So it is a lot, but when it's weekly, regular things, is not as overwhelming as it may sound. And then we brought in 12 artists, scholars to come in and rock with us our seminar series. Worked with 8 community partners. That's 8 agencies beyond Virginia Tech, you know, organizations, youth centers, all sorts of stuff. And we published 2 scholarly articles. Take a breath. But over here, you'll see the folks that work with us on campus, right? So we work with student clubs. So that's the Students of Hip Hop Legacy, Flamigos, aka the VT Breakdancing Club, and then the college radio station. That's something that's really near and dear to my heart. I've been engaged with a little bit off and on for 20 years now, which is wild, but you know, time moves fast. And then the university libraries, the Black Cultural Center, ICAT, that's the Institute of Creativity, Arts and Technology. Those are the folks who we're working with on the studio. And then the LGBTQ plus Resource Center has always been a really strong partner as well. And then VT Engage. So VT Engage is our service learning office on campus. So anytime we're going out and working with community organizations, I think it's important that we make sure we work with the experts on that, right? So yeah, so they've been really, really helpful. All right, so here are some of our seminar series events. We did an event. Man, it's hard to believe that was a year ago, almost to the day. But we did an event about hip hop and police brutality, looking at how hip hop has documented, particularly hip hop music, has documented interactions largely with Black communities and the police for years. You know, we played music from the 80s up till present about interactions with police. And we had a wide variety of folks, sociologists, Africanists, social workers, all sorts of folks kind of give their perspectives as well. We had a seminar series event on hip hop entrepreneurship, where we basically had an attorney come. She's an artist as well, talk about how you can take your passion and figure out a way to help. It's tough, but figure out a way to have that support your lifestyle if possible, right? So that was really cool to see aspiring artists kind of soak up game from Stacy. And then we had another workshop in October. This was originally planned. I think it was originally planned for last March, but we had to push it to October because of this pandemic thing we're all dealing with. Still virtual, but with Shantae Paradigm Smalls, about gender and hip hop, and basically what they did, it was talk about how there's all sorts of LGBTQ plus stories in hip hop culture throughout the years, and a lot of times they haven't been as celebrated, so they put a focus on that. And then we did a workshop on the legacy of MF Doom, really prolific artist that unfortunately passed away. And then another event we had this group out of DC rescore a live streaming of a movie, and that was Batman Ninja. I'm not a huge expert on this stuff, but I believe it's anime, right? And what the DJ did is he created a new soundtrack live while the movie was being streamed. And then we had a workshop with A.D. Carson. So A.D. Carson is actually, his title is Professor of Hip Hop at the University of Virginia, talking about hip hop in the academy, right? Like what the higher ed, what the academy can learn from hip hop culture, and what the future looks like as those two worlds meld. And then we got a few more, and we'll keep it pushing. Did a poetry workshop with a poet from Philly named Jaylene Clark Owens. She also talked about performance tools, different technologies and things like that that can help you with your art. Then we had another workshop on hip hop entrepreneurship, and this time was focused on tech graduates who are making their living in the arts and how they did that. And then finally, we had, for last year, our final seminar series event was a beat battle. That's something we've done for, I guess that was it was fourth year. And what that is we have area music producers come, and this was virtual, so it's a little different, but play their music and go head to head, and the crowd decides who wins. And we had, sponsorships, so they got they got a trophy, but also, gift certificates to different music vendors, all sorts of stuff, right? Yeah, so this year, what we've got on deck is 12 tomorrow, we actually are going to have a showcase for local artists. This has actually been moved to the library where we usually have the events. We were hoping to have it on campus in a nice green space, but it was looking like it was going to rain, so we had to make the tough call and move it back to the library. But what that is going to be area musicians, every area artists are just going to have opportunities. It could essentially be like an open mic with a little bit more planning on the front end, just to perform, and I think that's great. Anytime we have more art in the library, I'm all for it. And then next week, we've got a discussion kind of similar to the one we did with AD, but this is Dr. Tasha Iglesias. She's based out of California. She's a professor at the University of California at Riverside, right outside of LA. And she's going to talk about, the power of hip hop in formal and informal education settings. So that's the seminar series. That's what we got coming up. That's what we did last year. Real quick about studio hours. So every Fridays since spring 18, we've been in the studio in the university libraries, Newman Library, cooking up, right? So just basically how it works is if you've got something you want to record, just show up, no reservation or anything, and we'll help you make it happen. We've built kind of maybe we fostered the existing community of artists around, and this is what the mixtape came out of, right? So this mixtape we've been working on the past year largely came out of these sessions, and so now we moved here and we call this space True School Studios, but that's kind of some pictures from studio hours. Here's our fledgling studio as we're still putting it together. It's pretty bare bones. It's an old 1930s middle school that's been a million different things, but we're super thankful to have the space. We got somebody that you might have seen some other design work by and created a mural for us, Good Homie Signs. And so this is kind of what it looks like. Nothing super, super fancy, but it's ours. So that's great. So shouts out to ICAT for helping make that happen. And then hip hop study hours. So this we inherited from Kwame, but basically what it is, once a week, we create essentially like a really informal study hall where folks can bring music and work together and just have some space to do their thing. And that's over in Ujima, which I already mentioned was a living learning community all based around the Black experience. And then media literacy workshops. This is the part I'm super, super passionate about. So since 2016, 2017, around then, we've done more than 150. We've worked with a whole bunch of different folks, Roanoke Public Libraries, Vinton Public Library, the Boys and Girls Clubs of Southwest Virginia. We worked with all their clubs. The West End Center for Youth, which is another youth center. Science Museum of Western Virginia. Alpha Kappa Alpha's local chapter's STEM camp. And then Buchanan County, which is kind of far Southwest Virginia, their STEM camp as well. But what we do is we basically bring music production equipment and we put it in front of the kids and give them hands-on time to play with it and learn from it. And we talk about, the different science, technology, art, math involved in music production. And hopefully it's transferable, but a lot of times I think kids really enjoy it because it's things they're interested in that they unfortunately don't really have a lot of access to. And our mixtape, here we go. This is the cover, or at least a rough draft of the cover. Here are all the folks that are involved, both students. I would say probably the first four, definitely students. Then Freddie and Ed are Freddie's an engineering professor. Ed's an alum. Steve's also an alum. Toomey's an alum. So there's a lot of different folks involved, but we try to connect alumni and folks that have spent some time in the area with current students. And the topic broadly of the mixtape is all about the student experience at Virginia Tech. And it turned out pretty good. I'm super excited to get it out to the world, but I'm also at this point sick of listening to it. So hopefully y'all won't feel that way when you hear it, but spent a lot of time with it to get us there. But it's been a good experience to be happy to have it out there in the universe. All right. So just real quick, if I've got time, I'm going to show you this video because I can show you better than I can tell you what we do. And hopefully the audio is going to come through. But this is a video we made to kind of explain the process that our current creative director, John Kabongo, who's a first-year English grad student, and also a past technical director. We made this back in, I think it was like February. Evan, a.k.a. Prince Predator, the creative process of their song, and this was created during studio hours.
Craig, that sound is not coming through.
Okay, let me see if I can.
And I'm actually going to pause the video while we troubleshoot this.
Thank you, man.
Okay.
All right, cool. Yeah. So I guess the best way to do it is probably to send you the link to the YouTube video. It's only 4 minutes or so, but unfortunately, the audio is being kind of difficult sharing that. So, but yeah, what I like about the video is it does a good job of kind of explaining the creative process, right? And showing you hands-on on how John and Evan created what they did, man. So they made a song called Mysterious Vibes, named after the sample they used, and kind of John talks through his creative process, Evan talks through his creative process, and I think it's pretty powerful personally, but I might be a little biased, I don't know. But yeah, so here's some pictures from the program over time, So this was on the left-hand side. This was our first leadership board. Eric Liu, who now works for a international breakdancing school based in Finland, of all places. He's based in Virginia, but what he does is he helps certify people to teach breakdancing, right? And he was our creative director back in the day. Then Jewel was another creative director. She was a student rep for the Black Cultural Center. Here's Yamin Somali, I mentioned. He was an artist that was visiting us then. Mallory Fouch, she was with the Women's Center at the time. And then Dr. Kwame Harrison. Here is our last beat battle winner, and Evan, right, in front of the mural. And then we had an exhibit in the library all about the program a few years ago. There's a picture from that event. And finally, here's kind of what our in-person library events sometimes would look like. But